She walked into the high-end boutique with worn-out sneakers and a faded hoodie. The manager didn't even say hello. He just looked her up and down and whispered to a coworker, "She's wasting our time." But what no one in that store knew, that broke-looking woman was the fiancée of the company's CEO, and she was shopping for her engagement dress. 20 minutes later, the manager would be on his knees, begging the very woman he humiliated not to cost him everything. But it was too late. The CEO was already on his way, and he was furious. The wind off Michigan Avenue hit like ice, but Harper Quinn walked with purpose. Her hoodie was faded, sneakers worn, and her jeans had a tear at the knee. Still, she stepped into Valencia Couture like she owned the place. Because one day, she might. She was here for one reason. Caleb Whitmore, her fiancé, the billionaire CEO of Whitmore Holdings, had texted, "Find something elegant for our engagement party. Something that says you made it." But the boutique staff didn't see her like that. The moment she entered, the manager behind the counter looked her up and down. His name tag said Trevor, but his smirk said judgmental. He leaned toward a blonde associate and muttered, "Wrong door. She probably thought this was a consignment shop." They laughed, loud enough for her to hear. Harper paused. Part of her wanted to turn around and walk out. But the other part, the one that had slept in her car just 2 years ago, stood taller. She moved toward a display of gowns, trailing her fingers over delicate fabrics. She didn't need their approval. She had Caleb's love, his trust, and his name behind her. Still, it stung. Trevor finally approached. "Hi. Just so you know, our gowns start at $12,000. We only take serious shoppers." Harper tilted her head. "I didn't ask about the price." He gave a tight smile. "You'll want the clearance rack. It's in the back." "I'm looking for something for an engagement party," she said. He glanced at her shoes. "Of course." Harper took a picture of a dark green silk gown and sent it to Caleb with a quick message. "Dress is gorgeous. Staff's rude. I'll explain later." She turned to leave. The boutique doors swung open behind her, and in walked Caleb Whitmore. 6'2", black trench coat, calm. Trevor turned pale instantly. "Mr. Whitmore, I didn't realize." "No, you didn't," Caleb said coldly. "You didn't care who she was. You saw her hoodie and decided she wasn't worth your time." Trevor's mouth opened, trying to explain, but Caleb wasn't finished. "You disrespected the woman I love, in a store that bears my name on the lease. Do you know how many nights she went hungry while I was building this empire? How hard she fought to stand here today?" I didn't know," Trevor stammered. "Exactly," Caleb snapped. "You didn't bother to." The store went quiet. Even the blonde assistant vanished into the back. "You're fired," Caleb said. "Immediately. HR will contact you." Trevor looked stunned. "Please wait." But Caleb turned to Harper and wrapped his arm around her. "You okay?" She nodded. "Yeah, I found the dress." "Trev."
By morning, Harper's photo was everywhere. Someone had recorded the entire boutique incident, from Trevor's smug face to Caleb firing him on the spot. The clip hit TikTok first. Within hours, it exploded onto Instagram, Twitter, even the local Chicago news. On a Valencia Couture scandal, non-CEO fiancé in sneakers, Ratcher respect people. The public was divided. Some called her a queen, others a scammer. She wore that into a couture shop. She knew what she was doing. She's just another gold digger in sneakers. Harper stared at the screen in silence, curled up on Caleb's couch, wrapped in his gray hoodie. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the comments. Most were kind, but the cruel ones echoed louder in her chest. She didn't ask for this. She just wanted to try on a dress. "You don't have to look at that," Caleb said softly, pouring coffee and setting it beside her. "I just—" She hesitated. "I didn't think people would come for me." Caleb sat beside her, his jaw tight. "This isn't on you. They're uncomfortable with a woman who doesn't play their image game." She looked up. "Maybe I should have just worn heels and makeup. Maybe then he wouldn't have—" "No." His voice was sharp but gentle. "You were you. And if someone can't respect that, they don't belong anywhere near you." She smiled faintly, but the storm inside her still rumbled. "Why do they care so much about what I wore?" "Because you don't fit their fairy tale," he said. "They want a polished, picture-perfect princess, not a woman who knows how it feels to be invisible." Harper's phone buzzed. It was an email from a journalist. "Hi, Harper. We'd love to have you on Morning Chicago to talk about the boutique incident and your journey. Your story's inspiring." Her stomach turned. "They want me to go on TV?" "You don't have to," Caleb said. But she looked at him differently now. A thought had rooted itself in her mind. Maybe this wasn't just about a dress. Maybe it was about every girl who'd been judged for wearing hand-me-downs. Every woman who'd been dismissed before she even opened her mouth. Maybe it was time to speak. The next morning, Harper sat in a makeup chair under bright lights. A kind producer adjusted her mic. "You look amazing. The world's gonna love hearing your side." Her hands were cold, but her heart was steady. The host smiled across from her. "Ready?" Harper nodded. The segment opened with a replay of the viral clip. Then the camera turned to her. "I'm not a millionaire," she began. "I'm just engaged to one." A soft laugh rippled from the crew. "I didn't walk into that store expecting to be treated special. I walked in expecting to be treated like a human being. But I learned that in some rooms, clothes still speak louder than people." Caleb watched from backstage, his heart pounding. Harper looked directly into the camera. "But what shocked me most wasn't how I was treated. It was how quickly people on the internet judged me too. People I've never met. They told me I didn't belong, that I was faking, that I wasn't enough. And to them I say, you don't need labels to define your worth. You need strength to walk into rooms that were never built for you and own them anyway." The studio fell silent. The host leaned in. "Harper, that was beautiful." Harper smiled softly. Backstage, Caleb smiled too, because the woman they dismissed was doing more than picking a dress. She was changing the conversation. 3 days after Harper's TV interview, her inbox was chaos. Modeling agencies, talk shows, even a luxury brand offering her a free dress to reshape their image. But all of it felt distant, because one email hit harder than the rest. Subject: "Do you remember me?" From Raymond Quinn. She stared at the name for a long time. Her father. She hadn't seen him in 10 years. Not since the night he left their broken-down house with a beer in one hand and a duffel bag in the other. No calls, no apologies, just silence. And now, after all this time, he decided to show up? Caleb found her sitting on the kitchen floor, laptop in her lap, hands shaking. He crouched down. "Harper?" She turned the screen toward him. He read the email. "Saw you on the news. You've grown up. I wasn't a good dad, I know that. But maybe we could talk. I'm in Chicago. Please." Caleb exhaled. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know," Harper whispered. "Part of me wants to ignore him, but the other part wants to scream." He nodded, staying quiet. Harper had told him stories over the years, about the yelling, the evictions, the nights she hid under blankets with headphones on so she wouldn't hear her father throwing things across the room. But she'd never told him everything. And now the man who had vanished when she was 16 wanted a seat at her table. Later that evening, Harper sat at a cafe in Logan Square, staring at the door. Every bone in her body said leave, but she stayed. When the door finally opened, Raymond Quinn looked older, smaller. Time had worn down the anger in his eyes, but not the guilt. He held his worn hat in both hands as he approached. "Hey," he said, voice softer than she remembered. Harper didn't smile. He sat, silence. Then he sighed. "You look like your mother." "She died thinking you'd come home." He winced. "I know, and I think about that every day." Harper's throat tightened, but she kept her face still. "I saw you on TV," he said, and all I could think was how proud she'd be and how I missed everything that mattered. "You left," she said. "I needed you, and you left." "I know," he whispered. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I had to say it. I had to see you." Tears blurred her vision. "Why now?" "Because I saw strength in your eyes I didn't deserve to witness," he said. "And because I'm sick. Lung cancer. Stage 3. I've got time, but not forever." Her breath caught. He pulled a small box from his coat. "This was your mom's. I didn't have the courage to give it to you before." Harper opened it. Inside was a simple silver bracelet, the one her mother always wore, when they still had hope. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. Raymond stood. "That's all I came to say." He walked away slowly, back hunched. Harper stayed there for a long time, staring at the bracelet in her hand. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel broken. She felt whole. The boardroom was tense. 12 executives, suits sharp, expressions sharper. Caleb Whitmore sat at the head of the long glass table, one hand wrapped around his coffee cup, the other clenched beneath the table. "Caleb," one board member began, "this viral drama, it's becoming a distraction." "Distraction?" Caleb raised a brow. "My fiancée being mistreated by one of our managers is a distraction?" A woman across the table leaned forward. "We sympathize, but Harper is now all over the media. Influencers, interviews, podcasts. It's taking attention away from the brand." "She is the brand now," Caleb snapped. "She represents every customer we've ever ignored because they didn't look the part." Another man interjected. "But investors are nervous. They're questioning your judgment. Some are suggesting you ask her to step back." Quietly, Caleb stared at them. The silence thickened. Then he stood, calm, cold. "My judgment," he said slowly. "You mean the judgment that turned a $20 handbag business into a billion-dollar company?" No one spoke. Caleb leaned in. "Let me be crystal clear. Harper Quinn isn't going anywhere. She is not a scandal. She's not an accessory. She's the future of this company. And if you can't see that, you're the liability, not her." Then he walked out. That night, Harper sat on the floor of their apartment, her mother's silver bracelet around her wrist. A letter from her father folded in her lap. She had just finished reading it. The kind of letter you only write when time is running out. She wiped her eyes as Caleb entered. "I made some people very uncomfortable today," he said, dropping his coat and sinking beside her. Harper smiled gently. "That's kind of your specialty." He pulled her close. "They want me to distance myself from you." "Because I wore a hoodie?" she joked softly. "Because you make them see themselves," he replied, "and they don't like the reflection." She rested her head against his shoulder. "Do you regret any of it?" He kissed her forehead. "Only that I didn't walk into that store sooner." Harper reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. "I've been thinking." He looked over. "About what?" She opened it to reveal sketches, handwritten ideas, and branding notes. "What if we created a new line? Not luxury, not fast fashion, just real. Made for women who've been where I've been." Caleb's eyes widened. "You want to design?" "I want to change the experience," she said. "No judgment, no labels, just confidence, empowerment." Caleb grinned. "You're more than ready." They sat there in silence, two souls who had crawled through fire and found each other on the other side. The crowd erupted in applause. She stepped onto the stage, and the room fell silent. Harper took a breath. "2 years ago, I walked into a store wearing sneakers and a hoodie," she said into the mic. "I wasn't trying to prove anything. I just wanted to feel worthy in a dress." She looked around. "But that day, I realized worth isn't something you wear. It's something you live." People stood. Some cried. Others simply nodded, because they knew that truth too well. She smiled at Caleb, who stood in the wings, proud and tearful. "To every woman who's ever been told she's not enough," Harper said, "you are. And now there's a place that will never judge your shoes, only your strength." The crowd rose to their feet, and Harper, once dismissed and humiliated, stood center stage. No longer the girl in the hoodie, but the woman who rebuilt the world in her own image.